recording. Well, we could get started, I think.
Can we get started?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Well, first, I would like to thank all the participants again, and thank you, Amy, for an amazing conference. I mean, everybody I've talked to is just raving about it. So you and all the people that helped you did an amazing job. Another thank you to Beth, although, you know, all the plenaries were great. This last one, which we needed so much, was a gift from Beth, and during these terrible times, and we just needed her words so much, and she came through with flying colors, as she always does. And I want to thank all of the people in the audience, especially those that really need some sleep right now, for being here with us. We are very happy to begin with something different this year. The first person that is involved in this is Marielle O'Neill, and she will be doing a short skit, very short, with a few of her friends. Matthew Masser-Wright, I hope I'm getting that right, will be Leonard Woolf. Diana Morris is Margaret Llewellyn Davis. And the years 1913, Leonard and Virginia are seated at a tea table in a parlor in Newcastle, and with their friend Margaret, and who was the leader of the Women's Cooperative Guild. And they will begin. And then after that skit, the list follows, and everyone will be introducing themselves and their reading. So thank you again for being here, and let the party begin. Marielle?
Will you take milk or lemon, Leonard?
Oh, lemon, please.
Virginia,
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Could you not float cod liver oil on the heel taps of your coffee? You are too thin, and that lovely red dress and all the personal fascination must be filled out by more of you.
Too thin, too thin. All we working women eat is semolina and lard. Perhaps you'd like a dollop of lard with your scone, Margaret.
I'd rather have jam, if you don't mind, Virginia, dear.
Oh, I agree with Margaret. I prescribe gold top milk 3 times a day for you, Virginia, if not more frequently.
I can't forget those working women. Why the poor don't take knives and chase us out of their houses, I can't think. They stand for 8 hours, tying up engrossive jam pots. I'm not surprised their arms are so muscular.
Oh, I find them very majestic, with their Rubenesque stature. They remind me of the tea pickers in Ceylon.
Dear Leonard, you have such a global understanding and grasp of international affairs. We are so fortunate to have you on our side.
Oh, thank you, dear Margaret. High praise indeed from the most eminent woman I know.
More eminent than Beatrice Webb?
Well, more eminent than Mrs. Webb believes herself to be.
Don't mention the Webbs. I don't approve of the influence they exert on you, Leonard. They would have you cocooned in a web of their own spinning.
I think there's a chance of damaging the Webb influence irretrievably. That's my ambition in life.
But their remuneration for my work has kept the wolf from the door these past few months.
Margaret, when are we going to talk about my novel?
Virginia, I have to admit, I do find your new style rather cavalier and fanciful. You should lend your golden pen to writing a history of the Guild.
A history of the Guild? I'm trying to revolutionize the novel. I can think of nothing else, day and night, night and day. I suppose I could write an introduction to the Guild.
Yes, well, I could help with that. I am passionate about the Guild and its women.
A little too passionate, if you ask me.
Now, children, no squabbling at the tea table.
Curtain.
Thank you. And now we will have Madeline, or
Feminist Killjoy.
Feminist Killjoy, much better. Go for it.
Thank you for that, Margaret, Virgin Woolf, and Leonard. I'll be reading a letter from January 22nd, 1940 to Sheena Lady Simon from Woolf. My dear Sheena, I've had too many distractions to write. People staying here, London, and so on, but not too many to read your paper. I find it useful, suggestive, and sound. I agree with most of your arguments. I wish we could meet and discuss them. What the Americans want of me is views on peace. Well, these spring from views on war. So I shall work on from your paper when the time comes. Meanwhile, do cast your mind further that way, about sharing life after the war, about pooling men's and women's work, about the possibility, if disarmament comes, of removing men's disabilities. Can one change sex characteristics? How far is the women's movement a remarkable experiment in that transformation? Mustn't our next task be the emancipation of man? How can we alter the crest and spur of the fighting cock? Thus, the one hope in this war, his soberer hues, and the unreality, so I feel, and I think he feels, of glory. No talk of white feathers anyhow, and the dullness comes through the guilt much more than last time. So it looks as if sexes can adapt themselves. And here, that's our work. We can, or the young women can, bring immense influence to bear. So many of the young men, could they get prestige and admiration, would give up glory and develop what now is so stunted. I mean, the natural life, I mean the life of natural happiness. Excuse the scribble, pipes are bursting, a pool in the kitchen. All I mean is I am very grateful for your thinking and shall embed what you say in what I may write.
Thank you, Madeline. And next we have Drew. I don't see Drew around.
I was
Oh, good.
I was talking to Ollie Case, who was here the other day, and happened to mention that I would be reading this diary entry, and he said that that coincidentally this was one of his favorite diary entries. So Ollie, this is for you. From Thursday, 30th of June, 1927. Now I must sketch out the eclipse. But over Richmond, where the sun was rising, there was soft gray cloud. We could see by a gold spot where the sun was, but it was early yet. We had to wait, stamping to keep warm. Ray Strachey had wrapped herself in the blue striped blanket off a double bed. She looked incredibly vast and bedroomish. Saxon looked very old. Leonard kept looking at his watch. 4 great red setters came leaping over the moor. There were sheep feeding behind us. Vita had tried to buy a guinea pig. Quentin advised a savage, so she observed the animals from time to time. There were thin places in the cloud and some complete holes. The question was whether the sun would show through a cloud or through one of those hollow places when the time came. We began to get anxious. We saw rays coming through the bottom of the clouds. Then for a moment we saw the sun sweeping. It seemed to be sailing at a great pace and clear in a gap. We had out our smoked glasses. We saw it in crescent, burning red. Next moment it had sailed fast into the cloud again. Only the red streamers came from it, then only a golden haze, such as one has often seen. The moments were passing. We thought we were cheated. We looked at the sheep. They showed no fear. The setters were racing round. Everyone was standing in long lines, rather dignified, looking out. I thought how we were like very old people in the birth of the world, druids on Stonehenge. This idea came more vividly in the first pale light, though. At the back of us were great blue spaces in the cloud. These were still blue, but now the color was going out. The clouds were turning pale, a reddish-black color. Down in the valley, it was an extraordinary scrumble of red and black. There was the one light burning. All was cloud down there, and very beautiful, so delicately tinted. Nothing could be seen through the cloud. The 24 seconds were passing. Then one looked back again at the blue, and rapidly, very, very quickly, all the colors faded. It became darker and darker, as at the beginning of a violent storm. The light sank and sank. We kept saying, this is the shadow, and we thought, now it is over. This is the shadow, and suddenly the light went out. We had fallen. It was extinct. There was no color. The earth was dead. That was the astonishing moment. And the next, when as if a ball had rebounded, the cloud took color on itself again, only a sparky, ethereal color, and so the light came back. I had very strongly the feeling as the light went out of some vast obeisance, something kneeling down, and low and suddenly raised up when the colors came. They came back astonishingly lightly and quickly and beautifully in the valley and over the hills, at first with a miraculous glittering and ethereality, later normally almost, but with a great sense of relief. It was like recovery. We had been much worse than we had expected. We had seen the world dead. This was within the power of nature. Our greatness had been apparent too. Now we became Ray in a blanket, Saxon in a cap, etc. We were bitterly cold. I should say that the cold had increased as the light went down. One felt very livid. Then it was all over till 1999. Thank you.
Thank you, Drew. And now we have Vara.
No, Orlando. Apparently.
Sorry, we have Orlando.
I didn't know I was at Orlando, but now I know.
We all know now. Okay.
So I'm reading from chapter 3 of Jacob's Room. And this is not a smoking carriage, Mrs. Norman protested nervously, but very feebly, as the door swung open and a powerfully built young man jumped in. He seemed not to hear her. The train did not stop before it reached Cambridge, and here she was, shut up alone in a railway carriage with a young man. She touched the spring of her dressing case and ascertained that the scent bottle and a novel from Moody's were both handy. The young man was standing up with his back to her, putting his bag on the rack. She would throw the scent bottle with her right hand, she decided, and tug the communication cord with her left. She was 50 years old and had a son at college. Nevertheless, it is a fact that men are dangerous. She read half a column of her newspaper and then stealthily looked over the edge to decide the question of safety by the infallible test of appearance. She would like to offer him her paper, but do young men read the Morning Post? She looked to see what he was reading, the Daily Telegraph. Taking note of socks, loose, of tie, shabby, she once more reached his face. She dwelt upon his mouth. The lips were shut, the eyes bent down, since he was reading. All was firm, yet youthful, indifferent, unconscious, as for knocking one down. No, no, no. She looked out of the window, smiling slightly now, and then came back again, for he didn't notice her. Grave, unconscious. Now he looked up, past her. He seemed so out of place, somehow, alone with an elderly lady. Then he fixed his eyes, which were blue, on the landscape. He had not realized her presence, she thought. Yet there was none of her fault that this was not a smoking carriage, if that's what he meant. Nobody sees anyone as he is, let alone an elderly lady sitting opposite a strange young man in a railway carriage.
Thank you, Vera. Next, we will have Amy or Nancy.
Nancy waded out to her own rocks and searched her own pools and let that couple look after themselves. She crouched low down and touched the smooth, rubber-like sea anemones, who were stuck like lumps of jelly to the side of the rock. Brooding, she changed the pool into the sea and made the minnows into sharks and whales and cast vast clouds over this tiny world by holding her hand against the sun. And so brought darkness and desolation, like God himself, to millions of ignorant and innocent creatures. And then took down her hand away suddenly and let the sun stream down. Out on the pale crisscrossed sand, high-stepping, fringed, gauntleted, stalked some fantastic leviathan. She was still enlarging the pool, and slipped into the vast fissures of the mountainside. And then, letting her eyes slide imperceptibly above the pool and rest on that wavering line of sea and sky, on the tree trunks which the smoke of steamers made waver upon the horizon. She became with all that power sweeping savagely in and inevitably withdrawing, hypnotized. And the two senses of that vastness and this tininess, the pool had diminished again. Flowering within it made her feel that she was bound hand and foot and unable to move by the intensity of feelings, which reduced her own body, her own life, and the lives of all the people in the world forever to nothingness. So, listening to the waves, crouching over the pool, she brooded.
Thank you, Nancy. That was great. And now we have Mark Hussey.
This is part of a letter to Jacques Ravarat, who married Virginia Woolf's old friend, Gwen Darwin, who was Charles Darwin's granddaughter. It's July 30th, 1923. My dear Jacques, I only got your letter 2 hours ago on my English breakfast tray with its bacon and egg, and I will answer at once. No, 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 nothing you said offended me, all delighted me. And I should have written ages ago if I had not always said, I'll write Jacques a nice long letter, and so waited for the proper moment, and wrote meanwhile myriads of dreary drudgery. I find I never write to people I like. Jacques and Gwen require a good state of mind, whereas now you shall fill in the names of our old friends who can be put off with miserable relics. We are all packed to go to Sussex tomorrow. This conveys nothing to you who have never seen the Hogarth Press. We travel with a selection of our books packed in hampers. Add to this a dog and a tortoise, bought for 2 shillings yesterday in the High Street. My husband presides with considerable mastery. Poor devil, I make him pay for his unfortunate mistake in being born a Jew by discharging the whole business of life. This induces in me a sense of the transitoriness of existence and the unreality of matter, which is highly congenial and comfortable. Now, what do you think real? Gwen used to have views about that. Gwen was a highly dogmatic woman. Her breed is, alas, quite extinct. I assure you, I can knock over the freest thinker and boldest liver with the brush of a feather, nincompoop though I am, as far as logic goes. This brings me rather helter-skelter, but forgive thimble-headedness in your old friend, to the question of the religious revival, which concerns you both a good deal more nearly than you suspect. On my way back from Spain, I stayed a week in Paris and there met Hope Merlis and Jane Harrison. This gallant old lady, very white, hoary, and sublime in a lace mantilla, took my fancy greatly, partly for her superb high-thinking agnostic ways, partly for her appearance. Alas, she said, you and your sister, and perhaps Lytton Strachey, are the only ones of the younger generation I can respect. You alone carry on the traditions of our day. This referred to the miserable defection of Fredegond, Mass, confession, absolution, and the rest of it. There are thousands of Darwins, I said, to cheer her up. Thousands of Darwins, she shrieked, clasping her mittened hands and raising her eyes to heaven. The Darwins are the blackest traitors of them all. With that name, she cried, that inheritance, that magnificent record in the past. Surely, I cried, our Gwen is secure. Our Gwen, she replied, goes to church. If not mass, still church, every Sunday of her life. Her marriage, of course, may have weakened her brain. Jacques is, unfortunately, French. A wave of Catholicism has invaded the young Frenchmen. Their children are baptized there. Here I stopped her. Good God, I said, I will never speak to them again. What's more, I have just written a flippant, frivolous, atheistic letter to that very household, which will arrive precisely as the host is elevated. They'll spit me from their lips, spurn me from their hearts, and in short, religion has accomplished one more of her miracles and destroyed a friendship which I'm sure began in our mother's wombs. All this eloquence left me dejected as a shovelful of cinders. Next week arrived your letter, which was the greatest relief in the world. Gwen is a militant atheist. The world renews itself. There is solid ground beneath my feet. I at once sent a word to dear old Jane, who replied, a little inconsistently, thank God.
Thank you, Mark. That is a great letter. And the next we have, the last reader is Shiloh. And then I have a little short announcement to make after that. So Shiloh, you're up.
I am now the puddle. I thought being the last
Puddle.
reader was a tall order, and it made me quite nervous about what would be appropriate to read as the last reader, Judith. So I've decided to read the very end of the years, and that seemed appropriate. And it's too long to sort of read all of it, but what's important to know about this moment is that Sarah has just been woken up, and is sort of looking around sort of blearily. And she's just finished looking at these crumbs and the lights, and everything looks unreal, cadaverous, but brilliant. And she looks up at this group standing in the window and says to Maggie, look. The group in the window, the men in their black and white evening dress, the women in their crimsons, golds, and silvers, wore a statuesque look for a moment, as if they were carved in stone. Their dresses fell in stiff, sculptured folds. Then they moved. They changed their attitudes. They began to talk. Can't I give you a lift back now? Kitty Lastwade was saying. I have a car waiting. Eleanor did not answer. She was looking at the curtained houses across the square. The windows were spotted with gold. Everything looked clean swept, fresh, and virginal. The pigeons were shuffling on the treetops. I have a car, Kitty repeated. Listen, said Eleanor, raising her hand. Upstairs, they were playing God Save the King on the gramophone. But it was the pigeons she meant. They were crooning. That's wood pigeons, isn't it? Said Kitty. She put her head on one side to listen. Take two coos, taffy, take two coos, tuck. They were crooning. Wood pigeons, said Edward, putting his hand to his ear. There on the treetops, said Kitty. The green-blue birds were shuffling about on the branches, pecking and crooning to themselves. Morris brushed the crumbs off his waistcoat. What an hour for us old fogies to be out of bed, he said. I haven't seen the sun rise since. But when we were young, said old Patrick, slapping him on the shoulder, we thought nothing of making a night of it. I remember going to Covent Garden and buying roses for a certain lady. Delia smiled as if some romance, her own or another's, had been recalled to her. And Eleanor began. She stopped. She saw an empty milk jug and leaves falling. Then it had been autumn. Now it was summer. The sky was a faint blue. The roofs were tinged purple against the blue. The chimneys were a pure brick red. An air of ethereal calm and simplicity lay over everything. And all the tubes have stopped, and all the omnibuses, she said, turning round. How are we to get home? We can walk, said Rose. Walking won't do us any harm. Not on a fine summer morning, said Martin. And a breeze went through the square. In the stillness, they could hear the branches rustle as they rose slightly and fell and shook a wave of green light through the air. Then the door burst open. Couple after couple came flocking in, disheveled, gay, to look for their cloaks and their hats to say goodnight. It's been so good of you to come, Delia exclaimed, turning towards them with her hands outstretched. Oh, thank you for coming, she cried. And look at Maggie's bunch, she said, taking a bunch of many-colored flowers that Maggie held out to her. Oh, how beautifully you've arranged them, she said. Look, Eleanor. She turned to her sister. But Eleanor was standing with her back to them. She was watching a taxi that was gliding slowly round the square. It stopped in front of a house 2 doors down. Aren't they lovely? Said Delia, holding out the flowers. Eleanor startled. The roses. Yes. But she was watching the cab. A young man had got out. He paid the driver. Then a girl in a tweed traveling suit followed him. He fitted his latchkey to the door. There, Eleanor murmured. as he opened the door and they stood for a moment on the threshold. There, she repeated as the door shut with a little thud behind them. Then she turned round into the room. And now, she said, looking at Morris, who was drinking the last drops of a glass of wine. And now, she asked, holding out her hands to him. The sun had risen, and the sky above the houses wore an air of extraordinary beauty, simplicity, and peace.
Thank you so much, Sharon. Wonderful. I'd like to have you stay around for a few more minutes because Susan Wegener has a little announcement to make about the Virginia Woolf Society. And I thank you all for being here, everyone in the audience, especially those that have not gotten any sleep because they're from other countries where the time is so different. But I thank everyone for participating today. It was great. And we'll see you next year. Hopefully, we will be lined up in person. We hope. So now, Susan. I don't know if she's here. Is she here yet?
I'm here, yeah. Thank
Okay.
you, Judith. I will just keep this very, very short. I just, on behalf of the officers, members at large of the International Virginia Woolf Society, I just wanted to just acknowledge Amy again. You know, we want to express our appreciation, extend our gratitude from the officers and everyone for your work as conference organizer of this excellent conference. It's really been a fantastic event. My personal experience has been intellectually rich, technologically seamless. And, you know, as a conference organizer, you have been accommodating, responsive, always cheerful. And, you know, the theme of Woolf and ethics really have inspired excellent papers, carefully curated panels. And I'm sure that everyone here is coming away from the conference with exciting novel ideas, new perspectives on the familiar. So, you know, we just wanted to send you a small gift. We sent you a small gift just to acknowledge what you do. If you're willing to open it on Zoom, we would love that. And I just want you to know that our thanks extends far beyond anything that I can say here. You know, we all appreciate you, Amy. So thank you.
Hear, hear. We all agree.
Yes, I did receive this really beautiful, oh, probably let me
Take your
change
background down,
my
Amy.
background, yeah. Okay. I did receive this really, really beautiful. This is the wrapping paper. That's the wrapping paper. My son is, there's so much sunlight here that it's tough in this room. So I'll open this and try not to damage the wrapping paper.
You're great.
It's really hard. It's her handwriting in violet ink, which is just beautiful.
Tori, it's not a puppy. My goodness.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
That's funny. Let's see what this is. Oh my. Oh my goodness. What is this? It's a book. Not a puppy.
It's not a puppy. It's a book.
So
My
you're
goodness,
telling
I
me
really
it's
don't
a
want
book
a puppy.
It's a puppy named Book. I get it.
It's a puppy named what?
Book.
It's a puppy named Book.
Book.
And just to quote Beth, it's also not makeup, which is good because I also don't wear any, Beth. More money for books. Oh, it's a beautiful 3 guineas.
Oh, wow.
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 Gosh,
Wow.
that is gorgeous.
Oh,
Awesome.
That is so beautiful.
wow. Oh.
It looks like it's a first edition. Am I reading that correctly?
You are correct.
Yes, it is.
That's gorgeous.
Oh.
Oh my gosh. I can't believe you can find these.
Well, Amanda Golden was our detective to
Point
track it
person.
down, and then Susan and Amanda worked together to. Yeah.
Oh,
Amanda,
Amanda, that must be very, very hard to find these days. Thank you so much. That's gorgeous. I love Three Guineas. It's every time I read it, I just fall apart.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. It's very thoughtful of you both. All of you, whole group. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you, Amy.
A great
Yes.
conference.
Amy.
Yeah, I really loved it.
Great party.
Glad you could come.
Yeah. Yeah, this has been such a, I don't know about other people. I can't tell how idiosyncratic my view is, but you know, because as conference organizer, I think you have such a different perspective on it, right? It's just been such a wonderful experience. There was so much, I had so much nervousness leading into it, heading, you know, the preparation was really stressful. It's a lot of responsibility and you worry, am I going to drop the ball on something? But the experience of the conference itself has been, I haven't had any of those feelings at all. It's just been
Oh, that's
pure
great.
pleasure. the whole
That's
time.
great. That's great.
Yeah. It's just been really wonderful. Well, thank you all for coming. I'm grateful that so many people submitted wonderful abstracts and attended to listen.
What was the total registration number?
It must be almost 270 at this point.
Wow.
It's
That's
a little hard to tell because my list has a few people have 2 emails in there, but and people were registering. I had somebody register today. They were registering all through the conference.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, as I said in my opening, you know, that I didn't do this. Obviously, nobody does anything by themselves, but I really didn't do this by myself. I had an amazing group of my sort of what I think of as my Woolf colleagues, not on campus, right? Who were really just here throughout the whole thing. And I wouldn't have been able to do it without not just your support, but advice and guidance and work, labor, everything, all of it. And then the same with my colleagues on campus. I mean, Casey and Tori have been there throughout the whole thing, really, throughout the whole thing. And then so many of my other colleagues stepped in and, you know, to host and to help with, you know, other pieces of things. So it's really nice to have that kind of group experience throughout this whole thing. To make something together is really rewarding, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
And Amy, I've been to every conference.
You have?
I have. And
Wow.
this is way up there.
Oh,
Really.
that's wonderful.
This is amazing. This has been amazing. So
I'm so
thank you.
glad. Because it's, you know, it's you miss something when you're on Zoom. You really are missing a lot of what makes the conference so wonderful when you're with each other. That's good. I'm glad.
And that's more to the point that this was amazing.
Thank you.
The fact that it was on Zoom. Right. And we all just had a great time.
Yeah, I think we really feel so connected. That's what's, I mean, we did last year too. You know, it's amazing that it can be that you can feel so connected to each other, even though you're far away.
I think we've all run into people over the last 4 days for whom this was their first Virginia Woolf conference. And almost all of them have said to me, or people who shared this news with me, that they've never been to a conference like this before, where people listened and were not just nice. I think sometimes people on the outside are like, oh, you're just being nice to each other. Like, yeah, that, but also we're generous and we listen to each other, and we are genuinely want to know what other people are working on and how they're doing and if we can help. And
yeah,
I think that often shocks people when they come not quite certain what to expect. And this was no exception to that pattern, I think, of people coming the first time and sensing that there's something different than what they're used to in other places. So Amy, thank you for helping make that carry that ethos forward, especially in a conference about ethics. So
thanks. Yeah. Yeah, that it helps serve as a reminder to people to behave themselves. No, I do. I feel the same way that there's such a sense of care. I'm writing my next book about care ethics in literature. And so it's interesting to think about, one of the chapters is going to be about communities of care. And so this community is such an exemplification of that.
And I wasn't kidding when I said that those of us on the Woolf Salon committee, we're very pushy. So Ollie, Georgi, so we're going to say, you've got good ideas. You're hosting a Woolf Salon soon. So
Yeah.
expect.
I would love to. I would love to.
It's exciting. Go ahead,
something,
Mark.
Ellen, just picking up on what Ben had said about, and it is amazing to hear people, so many people like Olive saying they've been here for the first time and have had that experience that so many of us have come to expect and love. And Ellen talked about these friendships that we make because we know something deep about each other because of our love of Virginia Woolf. And it's like, it's not a secret language, but it's a sort of shared sensibility that I think, you know, knits all this together. And I'm flashing back to Amy, you and I think must have been in Cincinnati, sitting at the airport at one of those Formica tables, and you asking whether I thought you could do the conference, and I was like, yeah, go for it. Which seems so far away.
I know it does.
Now, after all we've been through in the last 2.5 years, but it was fantastic. Really.
And yeah, I remember that conversation very well. It was a big deal for me to have that conversation with you, Mark. And I remember asking you, I said, I would like to do it on Woolf and ethics, but should I do it on this other topic? And you said, no, I love Woolf and I love ethics. That's a great topic. So this is Mark's encouragement made this
great
topic.
So I have to go because Evelyn is waiting patiently to eat with me. So
yeah.
Goodbye, Mark.
Bye. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye, Mark.
Thank you all.
Good night, Mark.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you,
Bye,
Kevin.
Everybody.
So many people need to go and go to bed.
I don't want to leave.
Hard to leave.
We can
It's
turn the
hard to
recording
leave.
off though, can't we?
Yes, we can turn the recording off.
Sorry, what was the first
The
thing you wanted
end.
to say?